All right.
And the first presentation is by Contra Costa County Fire Protection District, Chief Gage.
Good evening, everyone. Lon Gage from Contra Costa County Fire. Nice to be with everyone tonight. Happy to be here to provide a report on behalf of the fire district. Let's see, we have basically launched immediately from driving rain and cold weather right into the heart of spring. So we're excited to see all the good weather, but this means the fire season is pretty much on the fast track. So everything's starting to get a lot of sun. Everything's grown significantly. We've got a serious bumper crop of grass. The good news is that the heavy fuels and the brush have received over 40 inches of rain in certain portions of the county, which is great news. The reservoirs love it. Nice snowpack. But what the heavy rains mean for us is that we're going to have like I said, a bumper crop of grass, which tends to be the types of fires that we get most frequently throughout the county. So we encourage everyone to get out there and do their defensible space. I'm actually going to provide you with some resources tonight to make you aware of the district's exterior hazard control program and how you can report exterior hazard control concerns of the fire district so we can try to get those mitigated. I'm also going to talk to you a little bit later about wildfire mitigation and some of the new programs that we have available through Firewise and through Measure X funded fuels management programs. To start out, we onboarded the city of Pinole into the fire district on March 4th. So now Station 73 in Pinole and the newly opened reopened Station 74 in Pinole Valley are part of Contra Costa County Fire Battalion 7. We did an official transfer of command ceremony on April 4th. Operations are going well in Pinole. Unfortunately, in the early morning hours on February 18th, one of our truck companies was hit while responding to a freeway accident. It was a tragic accident where the driver that hit our fire truck was killed in the accident and another person was seriously injured. There were also some injuries to the firefighters involved. I'm really glad to report that our firefighter that was injured has returned to work today. So he's back on duty with his crew. All the other firefighters are healthy. We operate under a standard response to freeway accident policy throughout the entire county, where we actually put fire apparatus in the path of oncoming traffic to where we're operating on the freeway. And unfortunately, sometimes drivers, due to different reasons, don't slow down as they're approaching accidents, which we really encourage everyone to do. And slow down and move over whenever you see a freeway accident or any other officials operating on the freeway to avoid any problems. But we place those apparatus there to make sure that the highway patrol officers, firefighters, paramedics, tow truck drivers, everybody who's out there responding to freeway accidents are protected if drivers fail to yield. And unfortunately, they did. And it resulted in a death. It also resulted in significant injury to one of our 5 aerial ladder trucks that serve the fire district. Those apparatus take over 3 years to build, and it's a serious impact on our system. So we're reviewing all of our policies, working with CHP, doing everything within our power to try to prevent these things from happening. But really the most important thing that everyone can do in the public is just be aware when you're on the freeway and slow down and change lanes and move as far away from freeway accidents as possible. Training update, our Lateral Fire Academy 59, which are 15 firefighters that we've recruited from area fire departments to join Contra Costa County Fire, is nearing graduation. They're going to graduate on April 28th. That'll bring 5 additional firefighters to each shift. Of those 15 firefighters, 3 are paramedics, and we're preparing to distribute them out to our various fire stations throughout the fire district. At the April 15th, I'm looking at my calendar, we added a second crew in the city of Brentwood. So that increases the resources to Battalion 9, which is in the eastern portion of the fire district. Last update relates to fire prevention. And what I wanted to kind of focus on tonight is our fire crew, Crew 12, and our exterior hazard control section of our Fire Prevention Bureau is operational and expanding under the funding that we've received through Measure X. So I'm going to put some things in the chat so everybody can use those throughout the night. But we have some improved resources that are available for wildfire mitigation to the public. We can help you with putting together community chipping days, improving evacuation routes, cleaning those up, entering your community in the Firewise program, assisting with defensible space. Provided we have a grant program now that's available to residents to assist them with defraying some of the costs of defensible space. We're also working to construct shaded fuel breaks, which are basically areas where we attempt to clear the ground fuels and limb up the trees and create fuel transitions. So if a fire were to start in an area, it gives us the opportunity to try to control that fire within that shaded fuel break. And then we're working tirelessly on different vegetation management projects and fuel reduction programs throughout the county. So that is the end of the report. I'd be happy to take any questions from the council. And like I said, I will be forwarding you information about our wildfire mitigation programs and how you can report exterior hazard concerns to the fire district, so you can report, or so we can follow up on those concerns and attempt to get those properties mitigated. That's my end of my report for tonight.
Okay, thank you, Chief Gage. Are there any questions from council members? Any questions or comments from our public? Anything from anybody online?
Nothing online.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to getting that information, and thank you again. Our next presentation is by the Sheriff's Office, Space Station Commander, Lieutenant Mark Rodriguez. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you guys for having me. I'll start off with the reports. We'll start with the select crime trends. For the month of January, we had 3 select crimes. The month of February, we had 6, and the month of March, we had 5. I can tell you when February was one of the more concerning months for us because there was 4 burglaries. In March, we had no residential burglaries and 1 commercial burglary. And then the remainder of the crimes, for the most part, tended to be property crimes as well. We had a burglary of a boat as well as some petty thefts. For the other reports for March, we had 89 calls for service. Those calls for service generated 25 reports. I can tell you that the bulk of those reports, 9 of them, were for missing or runaway juvenile. In that instance, it was for 1 juvenile specifically, and he's located every time. It just so happens that where he was staying and the policies that are in place, they had to be reported, and he was located and has been located each and every time. But in doing so and taking those reports, it obviously makes those numbers seem a lot higher and jump up. The reports for the month of February, we had 5 that we generated, and same thing of those were primarily related to property crimes. The biggest property crime that we're seeing and that we continue to see not only in East Richmond Heights, but throughout the county and the state at large is catalytic converter thefts. I know in large part it's a crime that can be committed very quickly, and there's a lot of value, especially when we start talking about certain makes and models of vehicles. There's a lot of value in the materials that are there. There is legislation that's making its way through the state legislature to try and make it a little bit harder for those materials to be recycled, and to try and curb that crime, as well as just some of the punishments. So I know earlier this month, Sergeant Young met with some of the community members at a potluck and shared some, crime prevention tips. I'll kind of reiterate some of those. One is, depending on the make and model of the vehicle that you're driving, when it comes to specifically to catalytic converter thefts, we're seeing that Toyotas, specifically Toyota 4Runners, Toyota Priuses, some of the Hondas, Honda Accords, Honda Civics tend to be targeted, and primarily due to the materials that are used for their catalytic converters. But with that being said, any other catalytic converter has value as well, and it's a crime that can literally be completed within a matter of minutes. So ways to make it a little bit harder is park in well-lit areas, or make sure that your driveways or where you're parking on the roadway in front of your residence, if you do park there, make sure it's well lit. Your vehicles are secure. If you have an audible alarm that is activated by physical touch to the vehicle, that assists as well. And then also surveillance cameras. So when we're talking about the follow-up on the crimes, I was informed by Detective Durand, who's assigned to the West End for us, that he was actually able to identify a suspect in one of the residential burglaries and put a warrant in the system for his arrest. In that specific instance, the suspect had actually gone to a residence during daytime hours and was wearing a construction vest to make it appear as though he was a utility worker. Was ringing on the doorbell, knocking on the door to attempt to see if anybody was home. And then once he realized that nobody was, made his way around and made a forced entry into the residence through a sliding glass door by breaking the door. It was interrupted. Homeowner came home, and he ended up leaving. So we did get ID on that suspect, and in large part due to some of the information that was relayed to us on scene by the homeowner, as well as surveillance cameras in the area. And Detective Duran did a great job in identifying him and putting a warrant in the system for his arrest. So that was good work there. The other things that we're doing to try and combat the catalytic converter thefts is specifically these crimes tend to happen more often than not during the early morning hours. So anytime after midnight until sunrise. So we've been increasing patrols in the area and asking that the deputies spend more time in East Richmond Heights and the residential neighborhoods on patrol, looking for suspicious vehicles, suspicious subjects, and making contact. Outside of that, we continue to work on our staffing that was approved by the Board of Supervisors. So back in July, we increased from a 5-beat system to a 7-beat system on 5 shifts. And that plan has been rolling out and will conclude this July, at which point all 5 of our shifts will have 7 beats. What that means is ideally it allows our deputies to stay in the various geographical regions longer and available for calls for service, as well as proactive enforcement. And it also reduces the response times. Certain calls, priority calls, require a 2-deputy minimum response. So crimes in progress, suspicious circumstances where we believe that there may be a significant threat to the deputies, we're going to respond to those calls with more than 1 deputy. So you can imagine if we only have 5 deputies assigned for the entire West End, that means that we could be pulling a deputy from El Sobrante or North Richmond to make it and cover East Richmond Heights. This allows them to stay in the jurisdiction and be a little bit, I should say, be more available and able to respond and conduct proactive activities. So we're continuing to work on that right now. 3 out of the 5 shifts have seven deputies assigned to them, not including the resident deputies that are there as well. So It's been a great addition. It's allowed us to keep a more active presence throughout the west end of the county, and also reduce some of our response times. So that's all I have for tonight's report. If anybody has any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. I've also included my contact information, my email, and my desk number there, should you guys need it.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments from NAC members?
I just have a question. Can you put a lock on the catalytic converters? And what are they normally worth?
Yeah, it varies, and it varies in large part due to the recycler that you're taking them to. But if they were to sell them online, sometimes we could be talking in the thousands of dollars range. And it's the materials inside. So depending on the time that people take to actually strip the catalytic converter, you can get a lot more money for them. Otherwise, you could be catching anywhere above $500, just depending on the effort to get rid of them. There's not so much of a lock, but you can put some devices that make it harder. So currently what we see is the suspects are using sawzalls to cut through the metals. And so some of the things that just make it harder is just putting additional metal that they would have to cut through, which makes more noise, takes more time. The other thing that we see is etching some sort of identifying number. So right now, one of the frustrations for us in law enforcement is, if I were to, say conduct a traffic enforcement stop for a said traffic violation, and in plain view, I see a catalytic converter sitting on the back seat that appears as though it hasn't been, removed by a professional installer or a professional mechanic, and it looks like it's just been hastily cut. Just that in and of itself, I'm not able to make an arrest. And one of the reasons being is I don't have any identifying information to say that catalytic converter doesn't legally belong to the person that I stopped. So some of the things that some of the community members, individual members are doing is going and having an identifying number etched into the catalytic converter with an etching tool. So anything from your last name, some sort of serial number that your VIN number, license plate number, anything that would just make it another step that if someone wished to recycle that or try and sell it illegally, they would have to overcome that by either grinding it out or cutting it out. So the other is some of the things, the cages that you'll see put on is sometimes they'll have a rebar welded on, or just some sort of sheet metal welded on around the catalytic converter. And again, that can still be defeated. It's just going to take more time, makes more noise, draws more attention.
Thank you.
I've heard previously mentioned advice not to confront if you run into someone feeling one of these, not to confront them, because there have been some incidents of danger in those confrontations to the person, the owner.
Yes, I can speak to a couple of them where we've actually had rounds fired at the owner of the vehicle. One in particular was out of El Sobrante, and it was in this one it was in the morning hours. The vehicle owner hears a loud grinding noise, looks outside, sees two suspects standing by their vehicle, standing behind a metal security door. Once he yells at the suspects, he sees them both get up. One is carrying what they believe to be the catalytic converter in their arms. Didn't see any weapons, so they decided to chase him down the driveway. At the point that they got to the bottom of the driveway, one of the suspects got in the passenger side of the car. The other suspect turned around and fired one round at the owner of the vehicle. Thankfully, the owner wasn't struck, but nonetheless, we don't want to take that chance. So it's better to be a good witness in that instance. Another one, I believe, was at a rodeo, if I remember correctly, and in that one, the vehicle owner was actually shot, confronting the suspect. Non-life threatening, but they did sustain a gunshot wound nonetheless. So, at the end of the day, it's a property crime. It's frustrating, but it's not worth losing your life over, or a loved one's life over. Just be a good witness. Call it in as soon as you see it, and we'll do our best to try and solve the matter right then and there. if not, conduct a follow-up so that they're brought up, the charges are brought forward.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. Is there any attempt to try to figure out where, folks who are doing the catalytic converters are selling them? Or to trace those businesses? We're trying to disrupt this at that level?
Oh yeah, definitely. There's actual task force at all different levels. And there is some active investigations going on right now within the sheriff's office to try and disrupt that. One of the challenging parts is, again, getting the identifying information. There has been some successful cases to where, abnormal amounts of catalytic converters have been discovered in some of these recycling centers, and the investigation that follows is able to confirm that yes, those are illegal sales, and there are significant fines. One of the deterrents that's going through the state legislature now is to increase the penalties, not only for the people stealing the converters, but for those that are actually taking possession of them and purchasing them as well. So some of the instances is that losing the business license or incurring a significant fine against their license to try and deter it.
Any questions from the public? Or are there any questions from our Zoom people?
Not from Zoom.
Okay, so I will get one administrative question, Lieutenant Revere. Is it easier for you to come and present me via Zoom than coming here and presenting in person?
In tonight's case, it is not.
I'm glad we're doing that. And it makes it easier for both you and Chief Gage to be here without coming to the facility here. I know you're all so busy.
Yeah, and just depending on the obviously on the date and time and what we have going on. But on some nights I go from one meeting right to the next, so this makes it a little bit easier rather than cutting into some of the time. But with that being said, I would like to come in person and introduce myself to you guys as well. And I'm sure I'll make it out there, especially now that we've returned to in-person events.
Okay, well, anytime it's convenient, we're happy to have you. Thank you.
Thank you for the.
No other questions. We'll move on to the next presentation. Edward, have you heard from the Highway Patrol?
No.
Okay, so
Yeah.
well, I'm assuming we're skipping that one. And the next presentation is our district coordinator, Edward Gonzalez, and proposed county budget and other updates.
Yeah, I'll get over here for folks can see me. So Supervisor John Joya contacted different departments and asked them if they could provide a quick update on the budget, essentially what's going to be the fiscal year 22 and 23 budget report. So we have a quick report that highlights some of the big items. And some of our presenters already mentioned some of these, so I'm gonna quickly go through them. This document is going to be available for the public. I sent it out to the members earlier today, and it will be on the East Richmond Heights webpage if you want a copy. So quickly, I'm gonna start with the Sheriff's Department. Lieutenant Rodriguez highlighted all of it, so I'm just gonna quickly go over it. That is that there's currently 5 sergeants, 35 deputies assigned to the patrol service areas or beats. There are now 7 beats, as Lieutenant Rodriguez has mentioned. Those are beat 1 is Rodale, and Viewpoint. Beat 2 is Terra Hills. Beat 3 is El Sobrante. Beat 4 is North Richmond, East Richmond Heights, and Rollingwood. Beat 5 is Crockett and Port Costa. Beat 6 is Rodale, Crockett, and beat 7 is Montavon Manor, Terra Hills, and Montara Bay and Bayview. So some of the events that the Sheriff Department is participating in is the El Sobrante Stroll, is the office of the Sheriff Shop with the Sheriff, Operation Clear Track, National Prescription Drug Take Back. And other events to note are the towing of recreational vehicles. The Office of the Sheriffs continues to work with code enforcement to advise owners of trailers and mobile homes of the restrictions to parking them or living out of them on public roadways. Illegal dumping is another event to note. The MHET referrals in 2022, the base station conducted 68 MHET referrals for the west end of the county. I'm not sure, Lieutenant Rodriguez, if you can explain, if you can say what the acronym stands for. I'm not sure, so I'll bring it back. West Contra Costa Unified School District. West Contra Costa Unified Schools District. The base station personnel have met with West Contra Costa Unified to discuss the district safety plan and response procedures of the sheriff's office to active shooters or active threat incidents. The J team staffing, the sheriff's office J team is a proactive community enforcement team comprised of a supervisor and 6 deputies. The team is assigned in the west end of the county. Frequently, some of their activities include warrant service, probation, compliance searches, traffic stops, pedestrian stops, and crime suppression related to specific crimes. Let's see. I believe that's it for the sheriff's department. Animal services, for fiscal year 23-24, recommended budget proposals are adding 5 positions to the enhanced field and shelter service. The proposed staffing increases were agreed upon with Contra Costa County Public Managers Association as part of the budget development process. So that's a quick overview, and there's more detail of these, and this will be made available online. If you folks want to know, and there's more of how many full-time employees will be per beat coverage in terms of animal services. So there'll be, just to quickly go over them, I think it's worth mentioning. So they're going to add 3 full-time employees to the animal service officers to expand beat coverage and support target goals for priority 1 responses. They're also going to add 1 full-time animal center supervisor who will work with the animal center coordinator to strengthen existing programs. They will add 1 animal center coordinator who will support the animal center service supervisor to strengthen and further develop the department's life-saving programs for the county's animals, such as adoption and lost and found programs. Okay. And then they provide a breakdown of how much of the animal services budget is going to each city, right? That's ranging from Brentwood all the way down to Walnut Creek. Let's see. And then they also provided a recommended budget summary for the different agencies and special districts in the county. And that also ranges from the Board of Supervisors to the county administrator's office, district attorneys, and all of that ranges. And it compares it from the 2023 to the 2023 and 2024 recommended budget. And I think it's just worth mentioning, since I have this in front of me, the change for the departments that I think that are relevant, or at least we've discussed today. Let's see. So for the Board of Supervisors, this year was 12 million. And it seems that the sum of this year and including next year, it would just be a recommended sum of 9 million, I believe, if I'm reading that correctly. So in total, there will only be a change of around $3 million into the budget for all of the departments across all of the departments. There's more detail of that in this document as well, which, like I mentioned, will be available online. And then lastly, the Contra Costa Fire Protection District's Consolidated Fire District Report. Most of it is around Measure X wildfire mitigation projects and programs. And the chief mentioned some of these, so I'm going to quickly go over them as well. And if you have any questions, I'll take those at the end. The Measure X wildfire mitigation projects and programs mostly goes to Crew 12. Which is staffed by Con Fire. Crew 12 is a year-round crew funded by Measure X. It's $2.5 million annually. It's a 16-person crew per day. Sorry, total is 32 folks are employed. 12-hour shifts per day, 7 days a week, May through October. The reduced staffing in winter, 16 total employed. So that would become 16 personnel, 10 hours per day, 4 days per week. So during the winter time, it scales downwards, and that's mostly, my assumption is that's mostly because of the fires, right? And program and project support. So these are other programs that this funding is going to. That's the neighborhood chipping days, shaded fuel breakdown, break work, which is considered large project support, evacuation route cleanups, trim of overhead trees and brushes, support of Firewise community work projects, clearing down of trees and mutual aid to public works during recent storms, which is something that we've seen a lot lately. Wildfire mitigation programs, that's an additional $2 million are going to that annually. So the district funded $260,000 for the annual cost of the countywide zone heaven evacuation system used by all agencies for more efficient evacuation planning and notifications. Multiple evacuation route improvements and projects throughout the county. In West County, we have the Sobrane Avenue and Skyline Drive area that was completed. Castro Ranch Road was completed. Wildcat Canyon Road is in progress. And Galper Road and South Ranch Road is also in progress. So other of these mitigation programs are the fire danger signs that was used for these programs. So one of them is the fire danger signs were installed in West County. Firewise community projects is another project that's done throughout. Firewise community project support throughout the county. And in West County, that's the Parkside Drive project, which is also still in progress. Vegetation management and fuel reduction projects throughout West County. 7 are completed and 23 are still underway. In West County, we have the local Wildcat Canyon, which is in progress, and Pablo Pines. And then the larger project management and implementation. So the board of directors approved and contracted with CEQA Environmental Consultants, which is states here, which is necessary for any governmental agency to perform large fuel mitigation and reduction projects. Tripping days as well, and dumpster days, other information, web-based community portal to request Measure X funds. And this comes more of like administrative, logistical support that has come out of Measure X. Yeah, and I think just to conclude with that, the fiscal information, so 2.8 million of the combined 4.5 million allocated has been spent already through March. So that's a lot of information. And I know I just vomited all this information. So this will be available on the East Richmond Heights website. And if you want a copy, you can't find it there, you can send me an email and I'll provide that to you folks.
Thank you. Any questions, or comments?
That was a lot. I know. I'm sorry.
Yes. Yes, hi, I'm Barbara. Hi, Barbara. I'm just curious about the animal services, but because there's no behavior team on staff. And their main problem has been that the dogs are not getting enrichment, and because there's no behaviors team, the only people that seem to be doing any kind of evaluation are volunteers who are just regular people that are coming to the 2-day course.
Right.
So I'm curious why there isn't any budget for that.
Right. And let me quickly look at what's going to be spent on the animal service department. But I do know we're aware of the animal crisis that we're having right now. And Supervisor Joya is meeting with the director of the department. I believe it's next week. I will be in that meeting because I'm the one who specializes in animal issues for our part of the district of the county. But it's something that we're aware of. And let me quickly check. But I did want to let you know that we're aware of it. I know John has met. I'm sorry. We had the meeting. Yeah. So I know that the supervisor is meeting with animal services regarding the staffing issue and regarding the process that they're using right now to try to get homes for these animals. Because I know that's been a concern for the community. So let me quickly check. What was the report for animal services? Can you repeat that question one more time?
Question was that there's 5 new positions that have been allocated, and
there's none for behavioral staff member or team. And the people that are doing the actual assessments are regular people who just have regular lives. We're going through a 2-day, maybe 4 to 6 hour training, and they're the ones who are assessing them, and possibly the vet who is assessing them as well. But because the dogs are in the kennels and they're put in, they're deteriorating quite quickly because they don't have also enough volunteers for any enrichment. And so it's sort of a self-perpetuating problem because they actually need more volunteers, and they need a behavioral team to actually say, hey, this dog needs to be in the play group. Hey, this dog actually needs to not be in the defecation in the animal stuff. So I'm just curious. I mean, I brought this up with you, Dr. Supervisor. And, you know, me and a whole bunch of different foster, I'm just a foster person, and rescue groups are certainly concerned about the behavioral put in place.
Yeah, thank you for just restating that question. Yeah, so there's not, like you mentioned, there's 5 additional staff members in this proposed budget, but they're recommended proposed budget, but none of them are behavior health, right? And that's what you're asking. So I've taken note of it. And in our meeting, I'll let John know that this was voiced in this meeting, for he can ask whether there's any room to add that extra staff member, or what the department is doing to kind of fill this void of having someone in the department that can assess where each animal is
Or a
at.
team.
Yeah, or a team. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Can I just bring up that the last in-person meeting we had 3 years ago, it was so promising because there was somebody here, I believe, in the animal services, who was telling us about this great new program where you could foster dog for a play date. You know, it sounded like some kind of new innovation to try to help the dogs out, so they could just get a break from all the noise at the kennel, at the pound. And of course, that just had to be stopped. So we certainly are aware here, but it's like it's like it's sort of like just another consequence of COVID is that.
Well, yeah, but I think it's really apt that it's called a pound, because if you look at a pound versus a shelter is supposed to be wellness for the dog, where the pound, the way that the shelters are behaving in many places, and certainly in Contra Hospitality, is out of town. So I'm happy to share a video that actually distinguishes those one things with you, so that you can actually see how do we get the shelter to act like a shelter in all that.
Okay, thank you. Do you know when this is up for a vote for adoption?
Up for a vote. What do
What
you?
is proposed, right? Doesn't the Board of Supervisors have to approve?
Oh, the budget? Yeah, so thank you. So it's on the 20, there are 2 days. It's in this month, is the 24th and the 25th of April.
April.
Yeah,
okay. So
the
next
24th.
week.
Yes, next week.
Okay.
Yep.
is that the
Yep, the Board of Supervisors, yep.
at the meeting, so it might
Yeah.
be a good idea to note that, and maybe show up at that meeting.
Yeah.
Comments. Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? Comments or questions? Okay, and you have any other updates, Andrew, for us?
I'm sorry.
Oh,
It's
Is there somebody?
I think the chief.
Comment?
What's it, the chief?
Edgar, are you there?
Yeah. Hey, Lieutenant.
Hey, I'm sorry. I know you were asking a question, I believe, about the Met deputy.
It was, yeah, yep.
That acronym. So just for information, that is a deputy whose primary function is working with a clinician from County Health to essentially conduct follow-up with referrals. So anytime we get welfare checks or we get dispatched to mental health calls, they'll typically conduct a follow-up with the clinician from the county to try and mitigate any future calls or any need for us to respond out. Couple reasons, some of the, just a real quick example to give you an idea is one of the things that we're able to do in partnering with them is when we go out to these calls, we're able to identify, hey, are they already working with somebody within the health system? And with the deputy having access to the clinician obviously has access to databases that we don't for obvious reasons with HIPAA concerns and things like that. But they're able to let us know whether or not they have any future appointments. And if not, they can work and get them the resources that they need to get them the mental health services they need. So hopefully keeping them out of the need for law enforcement to respond to those incidents and to treat it from a medical standpoint or mental health standpoint. And so those were the referrals that were mentioned in Edgar's report. I believe it was, if I remember correctly, it was 68 from the west end of the county for 2022. So, and that's both adults and juveniles.
Thank you, Lieutenant. And I just wanted to quickly end the report with, and it's worth mentioning, it's so the fire district will now start reporting at a quarterly format. They mentioned this on the chat. So that means that instead of when every meeting, they'll have someone present, the chief will present every quarter. And that, I don't have the dates in front of me, but they won't be as frequent as before. And that's because with incorporating, with having the Pinole under the fire protection district, there was some change in their structure, that they're covering more ground with the same staff essentially. So they can't come to all the meetings because they're also presenting now with city council meetings. So I'm working with their public information officer to see how we can accommodate, whether we can get reports when they're not, when a representative can't speak, and have the report and share that with you folks, and then take back questions and send that over to the fire district, and then just have that kind of follow up when they're not here. And that's all I have.
Thank you.
Yep.
So next item on the agenda is discussion items, and we have none. And then subcommittee reports, and I'll give a little short report on the land use committee. Jin Wei, who's a member of our council, and myself serve on that subcommittee. And our next meeting is next Monday at 5 o'clock in Supervisor Joya's office on San Pablo Avenue, 11780. There's 3 items on our agenda. The first is, I'm going to give the addresses, so if people are interested, they can come to the meeting and make comments and look. If you go online, you can find for the East Richmond Heights map, you can find this agenda, and then the reports on the items are attached. So the first one is at 1500 Laurel Avenue, and it's for a variance and small lot design review for a retaining wall that's taller than 3 feet within the required 20-foot side yard. The second one is at 6259 Bernard Avenue. And it's for variances, including a front yard setback for a detached garage, for variance to a front yard setback for a detached garage, and to allow off-street parking within the front yard setback, and then also a design review for the new garage. And the final one is at 5809 North Arlington in San Pablo, actually. Is that part of our new area?
I believe so. I mean, that was under,
Yeah, we mentioned that at our last meeting that they absorbed that area.
That's
Yeah.
what I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one is for design review approval for the construction of a new 2-story single-family residence. There are variances, requesting variance was for a front yard and a side yard setback. And construction of a new detached garage on a substandard lot. We'll also be reviewing a tree permit to remove 6 code protected trees. For the new construction. So those are the 3 items. If anyone's interested, please come to our meeting again, 5 o'clock next Monday at Supervisor Joya's office. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Did you say that meeting was on Monday or Tuesday? Monday at 5 p.m. Okay, so let's see, anyone want to, the next item is agenda items or speakers for the upcoming MAC meetings. Anyone have any suggestions that they want to give or request?
we can have animal services present. That's a good option, animal services.
We'd be able to having as well for the rescue groups that, you know, it's 90% of the.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, I don't see why not. So we can put that down as well. Do you have a name in mind?
Martina Animal Rescue.
Okay.
Any other suggestions? Okay, so we'll move on to our fun part of the meeting. Our regional historical presentation, and Fran Capoletti is going to talk about the history of Adams Middle School this evening. Fran?
Thank you. I think the whole meeting is fun.
I do too. This is extra fun.
There you go. So let me see if I'm able to share. I think Edgar, we have to do.
There you go. You should have
Okay.
sharing capabilities now.
Do you have a view in the room, I guess?
Yep, I can stand up.
Can we? Okay.
Okay, hopefully you'll see a picture, couple pictures up front with a title.
Go. That works. Yeah.
And are you able to hear me well enough?
Yes.
Good. Well, good evening. Many thanks to Edgar, Supervisor Joya, all the council members, especially Joanne, who gave me some advice. I always count on her for that. My name is Fran Capoletti. I only moved to the neighborhood in 2008. So I feel like that's a pretty good amount of time, but I know some of you have been here much longer. My son went to school at Crestmont, so I remember Adams when it still had students. While uncertainty remains, it does seem that a sunset of sorts may be have been underway for some time. While the future is another matter, I just want to talk a little bit about the past tonight. So let's see if I can advance. Since we're talking about school, I thought we'd start with a little quiz. No obligation, but who was the school named for? Was it U.S. President John Adams, Grizzly Adams, Charles Albert Adams, or Morticia Adams? So you're welcome to put something in chat, or if anyone wants to read the room. How many A's?
No A's.
How many B's?
No B's.
Okay, I'm looking for C.
1, 2, 3. I
Good.
already.
Now, I want to admit, some people may know more about the school than I learned in a brief time.
Yeah.
It's a shame I didn't. Yeah, a Morticia I had to throw in there, even though you can tell with the spelling. That's it. And when was the school opened? The choices: 1899, 1949, 1915, or 1999.
Okay, anybody for A? No. B? No. C? Yes.
Yeah, we're not going to party like it's 1999 either. So let's go to the answers. It was Charles Albert Adams, a San Francisco attorney, which was initially a little puzzling to me. Like, I never heard of this person. And it was 1959. So Charles Albert Adams, and I'm assuming this is all advancing. You can see the pictures. So there he is on the left at the dedication. He was famously credited in his obituary at age 94 back in 62. So he was able to attend the dedication. He was credited with Public Schools Week in California. And I did a little research, and it appears this tradition continues to this day. And this started back with a teacher shortage in 1919. So post-war, post-World War I. And I guess I want to say he's here on the left, along with Walter Wayman and George Minor. I think Minor might be another familiar name for local education. Now, I did find a dedication program. I just took a few pieces. Here it is from October 17 of 59 at Loring in Arlington. And I learned it was built with funds remaining from a bond issue. And hold on. it's saying something. I'll tell you a little more. The plant not yet complete. The school district didn't have sufficient funds to finish the whole school in 1959. It was planned in cooperation locally in the school. Oops. Go back. And it contained 28 classrooms. I have a news clipping from the time. The main building was the first one opened, and it had 28 classrooms. Let me go to another overhead picture. This is from one of the yearbooks they had. And let me see. Since it's back in the mid-20th century, shouldn't be a surprise that this is architecturally modern. When we go back to mid-century modern, from a continuous clerestory windows in the library, expanses of walls of glass with laminated panels, and windows with no lateral shear resistance. These are some features along with the uses of a folded plate roof. While some methods and features have changed, it appears this roof concept has resurfaced. Many thanks to Joanne there in the room for giving me some of this information. And I do suggest there is a report available about the structures from several years ago that looked at the status of the building and what it would take to make it seismically stable. There's a little more to the history though too. The 1968 Principal McCormick had a report about the school, and he noted again that how it was not fully completed until 1966. So when they were able to get enough funding, they were able to add an industrial arts building, music building, and gymnasium. And that was thanks to a 1964 bond issue. One other note he made was the district was not able to secure the entire property they wanted because Church of the Good Shepherd, I guess still where you are, right, wasn't selling it, and so they built the school around the church. Two basic problems he noted, even at several years later, were heat and noise, and I imagine perhaps to some degree that may have remained, but I would defer to alumni for that. Another major note is the architect was John Carl Warnicke. Interesting person. He played football as an undergrad at Stanford and was able by chance to meet JFK there, who was visiting. He then went on to earn a master's in architecture from Harvard. So again, this is the designer of Adams Middle School. There he was a student to Gropius from Bauhaus fame. But after graduating, Warnicke was a Bay Area kid. So he came back and he worked as a building inspector for the Public Housing Authority in Richmond. He became known, though, after getting his traditional education for work to harmonize building designs with their environment and also cultural and historical setting. So this was a big part of his strategy and philosophy. Hope I'm not going too fast, but I am keeping an eye on the time you have, Edgar. So he became nationally famous, opened an office in New York in 1967 with noted architects on staff. By 1977, John Carl Warnicke and Associates was considered the largest architectural firm in the US. So he went on to many big things. To give some examples of his work, if you've ever been to the JFK Eternal Flame in Arlington Cemetery, that was by him, certainly a much different sort of project than a school. He also did a lot there on the bottom right, Lafayette Square Master Plan. If you see, there's a taller building in the background, but he found a way to make use of existing older buildings and preserve that historical facade instead of demolishing everything. On the bottom left, Hawaii State Capitol, and then buildings at the Asilomar Conference Grounds. But just as important to me, he's also known for national recognition in 1951, much earlier than Adams, for Mira Vista Elementary. And if you go to their website, and they are still proud and know about his reputation as well. Another school that has not lasted so long would be Portola Middle School in El Cerrito, another Warnicki project. So I always find it interesting to note the legacy of who was involved in these projects. Now we have another thing I enjoyed finding was several old yearbooks over the decades. Really interesting artwork, reflective, I think, of the times, from 60s art, space program. Don't forget Woodstock. And then I love the Nike roller skates. So good to see student artwork. Who knows where they ended up in their later careers, but something to be proud of. Another interesting story I came across is a story of this car careening off Arlington into the grounds of the school. And it turns out this wasn't the first time it had happened to someone. Perhaps that's why sometime later, $800,000 was appropriated to improve Arlington and local roadways to widen and make, at least we hope, safer. And many of us, I'm sure, drive this way many times without crashing into the school. Let's see. So I hope you saw the credits on many of these photos. I want to give many thanks, Victoria Stir and Evelyn Santos of the Richmond Museum of History and Culture. I learned a lot for this presentation from visiting their archival library room, the museum itself, and it really was helpful. Even better, they both attended Adams, and I think at least one of them may be attending tonight if they were able to stick to the meeting. I really encourage, if you want to know, there's several local history groups, but the one that would have the most about East Richmond Heights is this one. A wonderful resource worth visiting and supporting, and that's their website. I also work in Berkeley for Berkeley Architectural Heritage, and we had a nice file about Warnicki there. In fact, I guess he used to come into the office where I worked many years ago. So that was another interesting thing I learned. So again, there's the picture. So I think I didn't take too long, Edgar, I hope.
No,
Thank
perfect.
you.
Yeah, I certainly want to be open for any questions.
Any council questions? I really enjoyed that. Yeah, great. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
It's amazing that this habitat, the way that things in DC and New York and things that have national prominence. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, it's one of these places I never gave it a lot of thought, but I would drive by it all the time and see it. And
Fran, can you tell us where you got the information about that Good Shepherd wouldn't sell? Because this used to be called Good Shepherd, now it's
yes, because I want to make sure this is what I'm reading. I wonder what else there is to this story. This is a 1968 interview by Principal McCormick, and he presented it to the school district. And it's about 8 pages long, and the Richmond Museum has it.
Okay, good. I'll look for it.
So I'd be interested too in knowing. And again, there's another school, Crestmont there, and still the church. So it's an interesting combination of places in a small area.
Yeah, in reference to our history presentations, I just like to call out to anybody who has any photographs of East Richmond Heights, new or old, or we'd love to start collecting them, because once you start doing one of these reports, you're really looking. And that, you're right, the Richmond Museum is a great resource, but I know in our neighborhood, when I did the report, John, let's see, he's at this meeting. Hi, John. He was able to give me a number of photographs from his family. So, we'd really love to start doing a collection, so we have access to those, and we would share them with the Richmond Museum, and they'd be in good hands, I think, and would be great to, start having a resource.
And
So-
that's right. There's nothing better than the local resources, either people still living here or who have memories and connections. I had even more material, so this could go on, but we like to keep this relatively short.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so, next item on our agenda, announcements. First announcement is that the East Richmond Heights map has two alternate seats available. So if anyone's interested, please contact Edgar to inquire about applying. His email is edgar.rosales@bls.ccccounty.us, but if you go to Supervisor Joya's site online, I'm sure you can pick that up. So we need some new applicants to apply for these alternate seats. Anybody else have any announcements?
It would be nice if we had somebody from the new absorbed San Pablo area.
Yeah.
A lot of people feel very active in the community. So we get, I heard Edgar earlier that we can get just a write-up of what it actually means, what the responsibilities are. I would definitely prefer that and. I have an announcement, but I don't know if this is time.
Oh, no, yeah, this is the time.
Okay, so it's just a speed right now, but I'm going to be holding a silent auction for. Yes. For the animals, yeah, and we have already donations from like Omaha Steaks. I'm speaking to REI, there's a designer who's gonna be donating, so there's a way to deploy it to the community. See if people want to donate services, it's a 501c3. It's all gonna go, everything's gonna go to the dogs. But just the fees for bidding owl, so I don't know if there's a way to do that. But that's gonna be coming up soon, of the silent auction services, or if people have things they want to donate. I have a sign-in sheet if people are able to foster or adopt.
What's the date again?
I don't know what the date's gonna be yet, but she's been planting a seed because.
Well, maybe she could present it.
Yeah, and we can also send a newsletter.
that would be
Send it in a
great,
newsletter,
because
so I'll
we
put you
can
for
all
present.
get the community involved
Yeah,
with what's going on more, because like you said, there is a crisis. And so we desperately need fosterers and adopt, people to adopt, and even just for a short period of time. And donations, because all of the funding that happens when the dogs leave the shelter is all funded by donations. There's no taxpayer money that's going for it. So that's why I'm doing the silent option.
Can you post at the dog park, at the off-leash dog park?
I can post, I mean, is there? I'll do that as soon as in the next couple of weeks, I'm gonna put it all together, and I'll get it.
Also, the Arlington market has a big.
I'll get these from you afterwards.
So we're already kind of crossover right now with the public comment. So, does anyone else have, this is for items not on the agenda, but for items over which the East Richmond Heights map has jurisdiction. Does anyone have any public comments they'd like to make? Could you stand up and you can state your name? And
Yeah, Steve Person, I live on Park Avenue. I noticed in a newsletter from the church here, there was some community concern about the number of cars on Arlington and the speeding that occurs usually in the morning and sometimes in the evening. And I think, that's in our jurisdiction, and I walk every morning, so I see them come off the freeway at McBride and come up and hit Arlington and go at least past Barrett and somewhere else. If I think it's a big enough problem that, the sheriff should be aware of, and I know they have a traffic division.
yeah, we've the folks from was it Mara Vista or the elementary school that's along Arlington, they've reached out to see if we can do something about just the speeding that's going on. So we've worked with Public Works. I think it was a month ago or a month and a half ago. We met at Arlington right next to the school with the folks from the PTA. We've also had the Highway Patrol, we had a sheriff's office, we had the Public Works, we had John there to talk about the speeding issue. And there's also a light that's on, forget where is it exactly. There's a light that helps students cross Arlington, and that, yeah, and the light wasn't flashing. So that was initially the issue. But then while we were there, the folks were voicing out like is actually a traffic speeding issue happening here. And we've talked to the highway patrol, and they're looking at creating a schedule to have them there on Arlington, just kind of, you know, look at traffic and hopefully have folks slow down. But long term, Public Works wants to get funding for these kind of like I forgot what they're called. They're called like coming out curves, or when you cross. Yeah, essentially there's like curves that come out on their intersection, and what that does is that it slows down traffic because cars don't want to drive really fast through there. And also kind of putting more yield caution lights throughout Arlington. So that was that discussion. It was essentially what's a short-term plan, which was creating like a speed feedback, putting a speed feedback from the county, letting folks know how fast you're going, and having the highway patrol drive around the area or park there during like peak traffic hours. That was a short-term solution. Long-term goal was to kind of get some funding they can make Arlington a little bit more, you know, just they can have more it could be more visible, I guess, like the traffic lights, the speeding light, maybe create more choke points, like more set of stop signs, have traffic lights, just to kind of like slow down the traffic coming up Arlington.
One of the things, it's an easy start, is that stoplight only activates during school year or school times. And maybe it needs to run 24 hours.
Right, the one that says flashing red should stop. Yeah, that's a good, I can take note of that, because I know right now, like you mentioned, it's only during peak traffic times and during the school hours. So that's something I can pass to our traffic department, Public Works, and see what their responses to that. Because essentially what they do is that they do a traffic survey, and putting that red light turns to that flashing red light throughout the day creates a crazy amount of traffic, which I don't know. They have to do a traffic report first, but I'll take note of it, and I'll ask Public Works for a response.
It's pretty good.
For those cost prohibitive, or?
I can ask them for speed bumps. I'm not quite sure if that's something. Yeah.
The speed bumps are actually not as effective as when you put the big planter places, but you're talking about a street that you really can't put a big planter.
No, and I think you could put speed bumps. Usually the safety folks don't want those. Because that is a main thoroughfare.
Right.
You have to slow down the response, but there are some things, the bulb outs and some others, but it could even be an educational campaign, because these folks are just using it as a bypass from the freeway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially in the morning, and
Yeah.
if you're traveling during when those lights are on, it really does slow down traffic.
Mhm.
It's been done.
You can almost cross the street. But not quite.
Okay, well, thank you. Maybe you can tell us what you found out at the next meeting after. That would be great.
Yep.
Any other public comment, Joanna?
I'd like to suggest that the council spends money on just some hardware, like for meeting supplies, now that we're back in person. That there'd be like a plastic tub that's rodent proof, and that we have supplies for meetings, like plates and hot dogs and equipment.
Okay, and I think we need to report to us on the budget after we get the minutes person.
Okay.
Or take that into consideration on the hourly rate for the minutes person.
Yeah, I think we discussed, and I could be wrong. I'll have to check. I think we said like 1,200
For the minutes.
for the minutes, like for the whole year.
So long.
Yeah.
Yeah, first dinner maybe. Thank you. So that's another thing to follow up on. Any other public comment?
Landslide?
That was up in the park.
Yeah, so that kind of concludes our meeting, except that we really got to just quickly, so I know it's great to put a name on the face, so maybe you could just each say your name and how long you lived here. And it'd be great since we have such a small group and we can kind of get to know each other. So,
I'm Joanna Pace. I go to this church and I've been here about 6 years.
Do you live there too?
I actually live in El Segundo, but I after long.
and you kind of really want to start
Yeah.
okay, thank
Not
you.
certain, it's hard.
Okay.
I've also been here 6 years. I was over at Pablo, and I'm so grateful. For living out here. It really is like a worker.
Yeah, more, we've been in the area for 50 years.
Wow.
Yeah, we both came from Pennsylvania. Me personally, I grew up in Richmond on 30th Street and then have lived up in Wildcat Canyon for pretty close to years. So it's a great place. East Richmond Heights and the park.
Okay.
It is. My name's Ed Weederholt. I've lived here my whole life, never left. I live on Park Avenue also, which is a lovely street. I don't know if these guys live there. No.
You all came together.
Yes, we did. Yes.
Carpool, great.
And all of my sisters fell this float 20 years.
Okay.
I have some old Adams pictures, I'm sure somewhere. I'm John Brady. I'm on Park Avenue for the last 21 years. Yeah, I emigrated from the East Coast and I've made my way through Berkeley and Kensington, and this is as far as I get on.
Stop. Anyone on Zoom who would like to jump in? Not required, just if you're interested, it's kind of getting to know each other. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
John, John Pritigal, been up here in the hill since 1955. I was a year old when my parents moved up here.
All right, we have a lot of long-time residents here.
My parents started the Arlington Market that year.
Arlington Market.
Oh, yes. Okay, I guess we could, I mean, I've been here since 1993, I'm from Chicago. I came here to go to Carroll and sort of moved around the Bay Area. It's 92. I'm headed down.
I'm the newbie. I'm Stephanie. I've lived here all of 3 years. Been in the East Bay for much longer, but we finally were able to buy something and we bought up in the neighborhood and it's just been fantastic.
Victoria, I bought March of '87. Well over 30 years. I grew up in Richmond Northeast, so I'm a local, born and raised. I like living in the hills.
Well, it's so great to have an in-person meeting again, so please. Bring them again and, bring your ideas. So I guess the last thing is. Yes, adjournment. Anyone? All in favor?
Nice.
Thank you, everybody, and Zoom.
Thank you.
He's got that presentation.
Please.
I know, it's great.